This week on the Frame Savers, with Chad gone, we monkey around. This is episode 49 of the Frame Savers, and finally, I have gotten rid of Chad. He's gone. He will never return to this podcast again, and we can finally just be rid of him. No, Chad is off this week. We've never had somebody take a week off in two years, but Chad moved to North Carolina. He got a new job. He's going to be Professor Chad Author Blues, and so we gave him the week off to go ahead and just take care of that and not have to stress. A professor. And so I have somebody special here with me, somebody great, a personality big enough to fill the shoes of Mr. Author Blues, the one, the only Spikevegeta. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, my friend. How are you doing this week?
I'm good. This is the second time I've had you fill in for Chad for me. You did commentary for Azure Striker Gunvolt.
Yes.
And now this. So I'm like, maybe you're replacing Chad in my life. We can be BFFs.
Man, how did we, you and I never really sat down and talked after that. Did you? How did I do?
You did a good job. It was good. I liked it.
Other than what
the controversy.
Reddit thought about it.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was great. I wouldn't have asked you to fill in for Chad if you had done a terrible job. So here we have Spike, and we were talking about an awesome game, Donkey Kong Country, which most of you have played. It's an awesome time, but before we dive into that, Spike, what have you been playing? What have you been streaming?
Well, I consider myself, even though I am a speedrunner, and I feel like 90+% of my content is speedrunning, I have been addicted, and I mean that in the most intense way, to Crash Bandicoot.
Mm-hmm.
The Insane Trilogy came out about a month ago. It was around the time SGDQ, Summer Games Done Quick, started, and I picked it up while I was there, never played it throughout the week, and it's just, it's been me waking up, eating, and playing Crash Bandicoot, and then going back to sleep. Just that's been, and I've been learning, strategies for it, trying to 100% the games, speed run them afterwards.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. I honestly have a lot of other projects, including the game we're talking about today, that I need to get back to. But I'm just gonna allow myself to fully enjoy Crash Bandicoot, so I don't regret anything when I get out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You gotta let yourself enjoy a game if you get that excited about it.
Absolutely,
you gotta take advantage of that.
I have so many friends who, this year, 2017, people were like, "Oh, best year in gaming." You had games like Persona 5 this year, Breath of the Wild, Nier. That people just, that was them. They remember waking up, eating, and playing that game. They were just absolutely obsessed with it. And I'm one of those people in the world who can get that way about a run and jump game.
Yeah,
you put a platformer in front of me, that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to I'm going to sink a couple 100 hours into it in a few weeks, and just, I don't know where my life went.
That's awesome. Yeah, for me myself, I feel like we've talked about this. Sometimes when I start off this podcast and Chad asks me what I've been doing, and he's speedrun like 20 different games, I'm like, I haven't done much. I did just a bunch of Game Boy quests, but I've been speedrunning like crazy. I did about 30 hours of Bebe's Kids. That was really rough. I did the Pocket last week that you guys got. Sadly, I didn't get to say in that Pocket, because I recorded it early, that I beat the world record and I beat the task. So Bebe's Kids, I locked it down. Since then, I've been derusting a bunch of Link to the Past. I learned Tempered Sword Route. That was really fun.
You cut off?
Yeah, I was 1 second behind Oth, or it was like 2 seconds behind Oth, and he's the only person I beat because I had a terrible 3-second PB. So, but I submitted it only because it put me ahead of Oth. If not, I wouldn't have submitted it. So that was cool. And then I've been learning Operation C. I've been doing Game Boy Quest. I've been streaming a lot, like 7-8 hours a day, even though I work full time. So I don't know what's been going on, but it's been fun.
I feel like I barely get to 7-8 hours a day, and I stream full time.
Yeah,
so that's very impressive. You have found the time.
Yeah, I had a week where I streamed 51 hours, and I worked full time. It was like, wow, that was a lot of things.
You got a lot of hours left.
Yeah. So some stuff coming up in terms of just like events and speedrunning. So there's actually currently a Donkey Kong Country All Stages tournament going on right now. You can go to twitch.tv/speedgaming. We talk about them a lot. That's the place to go to if you're looking for tournaments and different speedrun content. And I'm assuming you're in that.
Yes, I was.
You got knocked out?
I got out of pools, which I mean, when I started the tournament, I was very low tier runner. It had been years since I touched the game. I improved my time a lot. I had a
Oh,
ton of
okay,
fun with the
cool.
game, and I got out of pools, got to the Sweet 16, and
Ooh.
went out to a very good runner by the name of KBZ, who's still alive. They're down to the final 6.
Okay.
They're trying to get down to the final 4 this week. And then they like to show all the finals, the final 4.
Yeah.
The DKC1 tournament has been a lot of fun to watch the last few weeks, especially once they got down to those top couple of runners. Because they've had a lot of races come down to under 10 seconds.
Wow.
Apart.
Yeah, that's exciting.
That's pretty crazy with all the tricks and everything, and we'll get into that later. But
yeah,
absolutely recommend if anybody here for some reason is not following twitch.tv/speedgaming and speedgaming2.
Yeah.
Fiesel does amazing work over there, and the DKC tournament's going to be a ton of fun, especially coming down here on our final 4.
Yeah, it's so big that they have a speedrunning too. They're gonna have, we've said before, the speedrunning Ocho soon, speedrunning classic. It's just like it's gonna take over.
Ocho.
But yeah, if you listen to this and you've never watched a DKC run and you're like, hey, that sounds like a cool game, you can see the final 4. You'll see the best players playing, so check that out. Smash the Record is coming up in a few months, September 14th to 17th. It's a Super Smash Brothers, I guess, tournament, but also a speedrunning marathon. It benefits St. Jude's. I don't know where that's going to be streamed at, so we'll have to announce that maybe closer to when it happens. Or do you know?
I feel like that's something I should know, considering I'm going to it. I have 2 runs at it.
I'm sure it'll be hard to miss.
Yeah,
but we'll try and tweet it out.
They'll be going live from Los Angeles on those dates.
And,
they've done it now 2 straight years, I believe. This is their 3rd year, and it's really fun that they get to that they brought together 2 communities that I thought would have a lot of natural overlap. Because speed running, even though you see speed running for all sorts of different consoles, it overlaps heavily with Nintendo.
Yeah.
A lot of people from Nintendo. You see lots of obviously Marios and Zeldas and
definitely
Metroids and Donkey Kongs and all that stuff. Well, okay, Super Smash Brothers. They're probably to some extent Nintendo fans over there. You're getting more and more people that are very good at Smash and are also very solid in speed gaming and vice versa. So bringing those 2 together, they're very natural audiences that like to support one another. So,
yeah, for sure. And every GDQ, there's usually some Smash tournaments and stuff too. So it's pretty awesome. So look out for that. St. Jude's is a really good charity. Tusa Grande has been going on. We haven't mentioned this probably ever, and like it's usually going on throughout the year, but this is kind of like right up me and Chad's alley because we love bad games. We're probably the only podcast who's ever done episodes on stuff like Bebe's Kids, and if you go to twitch.tv/Brosentia, that's BROSSENTIA, that's going on right now. It's a bad games tournament, so Kuso Grande, a lot of fun. This is Tuso Grande, I guess. So Kuso is like a bad game, so it's a play on, it's like a pun. Brosentia likes a lot of puns, so check that out. And the other piece of news is that the Big 20s game list is going to be announced the day after this recording on August 1st. So by the time this airs, that'll be out. Chad and I might do our normal rundown.
Games list, right, audience?
Yeah. So me and Chad will probably do our rundown that we normally do and kind of talk about that, at least as a small segment. One more thing before we move on to DKC, we'd be remiss not to announce that I am a big collector. And honestly, when I started this podcast, I had envisioned us talking a lot more about collecting. But as of this week, I completed my Game Boy set completely. So I have every USA Game Boy game that's ever been released. So the last one is in the mail right now from Finland. But really excited about that. Chad wants me to do a pocket about it. So I'll go all into detail about collecting and what went into the several years of getting all of those games. But pretty exciting. I'm pretty stoked.
I have to ask you 2 questions.
Go ahead.
What's the total number of Game Boy games you have now? And what was the last one coming to you from Finland? Yeah,
so there's 511 U.S. released Game Boy games that have USA labels. So I'm also doing Game Boy Quest. I don't know if you know this because you don't even follow me on Twitch, actually, Spikevegeta. Yeah, so you got to get on that. I know. But
a best friend. Go ahead.
I'm doing a console challenge where I'm trying to beat every Game Boy game, and like 160 in. So these are the same games I'm trying to beat exactly. The last 2 I got, Jimmy Connor's Tennis is really, really hard to find a USA copy of. Like, I've never seen one on eBay except for one complete in box copy for $400. And so I'm like, I've never seen a USA copy. I've never, in my many years of collecting Game Boy, and I'll get into this in the, I guess the teaser for the podcast is I just got a copy of it for $15 complete in box off of Amazon. I saw somebody posted it. It was the same day. I messaged them. They sent me a picture, and it was the USA copy. Because there's a ton of European copies of that game, but the USA one's really rare, and it's complete, and that was only $15. It's probably worth like $300 or more, $400. So super exciting.
The Game Boy game, they don't know.
Yeah, and then the last game I got was Amazing Tater, which is just like the most uncommon one, or most expensive one. It cost me $235. It was the only. I only spent over $100 on 2 games, so I really kept it down. Yeah, so I'm excited. I might get some custom shelving built for it. I'm gonna be Instagramming some stuff. You know how it is. So excited to announce that. We've talked about it a bit before, but. Anyways, this episode's not about Game Boy. It is, well, I mean, there's a game of this on the Game Boy, but Donkey Kong Country. Why are we playing Donkey Kong Country? Why are we talking about that? What? Sell me in one sentence or 2 sentences on why somebody should be interested in Donkey Kong Country.
Donkey Kong Country is one of the fastest paced, but easiest to get into speedruns out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that would honestly be. People come into my chat all the time, and that's kind of the classic question. Do you have a recommendation for a speed game for me to get into? A game I should pick? This Mario or this Zelda or a Sonic or something. And probably the #1 game that I recommend to people is Donkey Kong Country 1 for the Super Nintendo.
Wow.
I think it's just got the perfect balance of. It's very simple in its mechanics. So you can get into it and just kind of understand the basics. It's practically a 2-button game on the Super Nintendo. Mm-hmm. But it's incredibly fast-paced. There's like no downtime at any point in the run. Yeah. And it's got an amazing amount of depth to it, which is where I like my speed games. I like them simple in concept, but the more you dig, you feel like I did not know this game could go nearly this far. For a game that's, you hold right and you go to the, you jump around, you do some rolls.
Yeah.
It's
what
perfect
about
for a speed game.
What about as a casual experience?
As a casual experience, DKC1, it's got both. It's very challenging, fair at the same time. The music is beautiful. Shout outs to David Wise and his team. Rareware, we're talking 23 years ago at this point, for putting together the soundtrack for that and the rest of the DKC trilogy and all the other games they've done. Everything David Wise has touched and his team, I always want to make sure it's not just David Wise. It has turned to gold. Yeah. And it's also for you completionists out there. The DKC games have a lot to find in all of these levels. Yeah. In order to get the 101% completion. So yeah, I think there's tons out there casually and as a speed run. I think anybody will be able to find something they love about it.
Awesome. You heard it here first from Spikevegeta. Donkey Kong Country is a good game. So
first, right here, 2017, the verdict's out. DKC is a good game.
So let's take a quick music break, listen to some of that beautiful David Wise music, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit of the background of this game. Good work, Spiky.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to dive in here. Oh, I did more notes than we normally do, so hopefully I can get through this quickly without. I can be rambly.
Do you want me to be more or less talkative?
You're doing great.
Okay.
During this section, maybe less, but then the whole rest of it probably just as much. So as I said, we're going to talk about Donkey Kong Country. So what is Donkey Kong Country? This is a game that was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo and was released in 1994 for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Rare is actually a company that really started out making ZX Spectrum games and then got into the Famicom and NES market later on. So this game was later re-released on the Game Boy Color in 2000 and to the Game Boy Advance in 2003, and then you can find it on Wii U, and new 3DS virtual consoles. Anywhere you could want to play it, you can probably play it. And had 2 sequels on the Super Nintendo. You got DKC2, which is Diddy Kong's Quest in 1995, and DKC3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. And so, as I said, Rare is a UK-based company. They started in 1985. They actually started out of another company that was really focused on ZX Spectrum. And then basically they started seeing the merit of the NES versus the ZX Spectrum, which was a really popular console in the UK at the time, actually, and started making some pretty good NES games. They made Wizards and Warriors, they made Battletoads, RC Pro-Am. Later on, they would make stuff for like the N64, GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day. So like they're a really well-established publisher, developer. Actually ended up being a second-party developer. So what that means is, we'll get into it, but Nintendo basically owned 49% of Rare. So it was basically an extension of Nintendo, and this game is a big reason why. So Donkey Kong as a character came from the game that you've seen in the arcades and stuff, Donkey Kong, and was actually supposed to be a Popeye game. It's kind of a common knowledge if you're like into video game history, but if it weren't for the Popeye license or whatever the reason was not working out, we might not have Mario, because that's where Mario came from, Jumpman, who turned into Mario. Pauline was in that, and then Donkey Kong was replacing Bluto. So we could live in a world without Donkey Kong or Mario if Popeye had his way. We'd all just be wearing Popeye t-shirts, you know?
I have to bring this up, and I know this is nerding out a little bit, but I love the irony. You're a Game Boy fan.
Yeah.
Did you ever play Popeye 2 for
I've
Game Boy?
speedrun Popeye 2 on the Game Boy.
You speedrun?
Yeah.
And how much that game, like just the sprites and everything about it, looks like Super Mario Land.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
And so it's funny how, you know, basically Mario and Donkey Kong and everything was kind of born out of Popeye, and then Popeye ended up making a platformer later on that was made out of, at least, I think, heavily influenced by Mario.
Yeah.
Just kind of funny how that worked out.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what would have happened if Popeye... I think it was a licensing issue. I can't remember. But, like, if that game had been Popeye, like, would Popeye still be super popular? Or would Nintendo have failed?
Sure.
Or, like, what would the world look like right now? What would SGDQ look like? Would we all be playing like different Popeye games? Popeye 64? Would Cheese be doing Popeye 64 BLJs right now?
I would love to see Popeye doing a BLJ right now, dude.
So, funny thing about Donkey Kong is that there's actually a lawsuit with Universal. We could go into like tons of Donkey Kong history, but I just think this is interesting. Basically, Universal sued Nintendo saying, well, Donkey Kong is an infringement on King Kong, and basically what happened is Nintendo won that lawsuit because Universal had used the argument that King Kong was public domain in a previous case, and so they were able to win that case, and that's why they were able to keep the name Donkey Kong and keep the character. So, back to, I would say modern day, but back to 1994. Right. Tim and Chris Stamper were directors at Rare, and they were running experiments with this company called Silicon Graphics to develop 3D rendered sprites, initially for a boxing game, actually. And so that's the real unique part about Donkey Kong Country's graphics, which we'll get into when we kind of do the ratings, but they're 3D rendered graphics that are turned into 2D sprites, and this technology was being investigated by them and with this company Silicon Graphics, and they're initially doing it for this boxing game. This is a big reason why Nintendo ended up buying, I think, initially 25% of the company and then 49% of the company, is because they're really interested in the work that Rare was doing. Plus, Rare had made, you know, a bunch of really good games for the NES and Famicom and stuff up to this point. As we said, David Wise did the music. It's super good. So good, they released it on a soundtrack called DK Jams. I assume that CD is probably pretty collectible because I've never seen it. And
I want it. I can say that much.
Yeah. And I think they came out with some CDs for like the second one and third one too, from what I saw. And this was the first time Shigeru Miyamoto did not produce or direct a game that had Donkey Kong in it. And this was a big team for the time. It was 20 people. It took over 18 months to develop. This is the largest team Rare had assembled up to this point, and the game was like a smashing success. It sold $9 million in 9 million copies. Sorry, not $9 million. 9 million copies. I have a $sign there though in my notes. So it's the second best-selling Super Nintendo game of all time. which that kind of surprised me a bit, to be honest. And it helped keep game sales for the Super Nintendo high at a time that was kind of crucial because the PS1 was coming out, the Saturn was coming out, these new gen consoles, and so it was kind of a must-buy, game. And to promote it, they spent a bunch of money on marketing. I think I read like over $3 million, and they gave out these 15-minute VHS tapes called Donkey Kong Country Exposed. It was sent to people who had Nintendo Power magazine, and just like kind of showed off the game and the graphics and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool, I think. I don't know. I would probably also collectible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the gameplay, you can tell us a bit about this, Spike. What's the gameplay like?
Sure. So you have control of Donkey Kong, and also his little buddy Diddy Kong, kind of a new hip character that they made for just for this game that Rare came up with. Walks around in his little hat and his shirt.
Yeah.
And he kind of plays.
Got some 90s too.
Yep, absolutely. You end up seeing in Donkey Kong Country 2 later on. He ends up, whenever you beat a level in a certain way, like kind of the best way possible, he'll play on his little boom box.
Yeah.
So definitely there was a sense of like, it was the 90s. It was everyone was being cool and into hip hop and everything.
Yeah, the intro starts out with Cranky Kong listening to music on like what's it called?
A something phone.
Turntable? Oh, no, yeah, like a gramophone or something.
Yeah, whatever the word is.
I don't know. You spin the thing and it plays, and then like a giant boombox like falls from the sky or something, and it's like
the 90s. We got this attitude.
Yeah. And interesting, actually, Diddy Kong is his nephew. They wanted to initially do Donkey Kong Jr., who had games on there's a Donkey Kong Jr. game on the NES. And but they had this Diddy Kong sprite, and they said they weren't going to like change the way he looked completely, so they could use the Diddy Kong sprite, but they had to decide it had to be a different character. They didn't want to, I guess, malign the Donkey Kong Jr. name per se. So
yeah, so you've got Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong, and the basic premises of the gameplay is, or I guess the story, the lore, is that
respect
King
the lore.
K. Rool and his army of Kremlings, a bunch of lizards, bust onto Donkey Kong Island and steal Donkey Kong's banana horde. And that is all the plot we get.
Yeah, that's
so it's up to Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong to it's kind of classic 90s video game storytelling where there's no cutscene that tells you this. You know it from two things. One, it was in the manual that came with your games. And two, the first thing it does is it busts Donkey Kong out of his house. There's a little hole right underneath his house. You walk in it, and it's DK's banana horde or whatever exactly it says right there. And it's just empty.
And it's empty, yeah.
Cave. All of his bananas are gone. So now you're not trying to save a girlfriend, the princess. You're not trying to save the world. You're just getting your bananas back. So Donkey enlists his his nephew Diddy Kong to go out and save the banana horde.
This is a super rabbit trail, but there was recently a video when Mario Odyssey's trailer came out. So Mario Odyssey takes place in New Donk City, right? Is that New Donk City? Which is is Donkey Kong the mayor of it or something like that? Pauline, who's from the Donkey Kong game. And so they're like, well, why is Mario so much shorter than the people? And they went into basically the game theory YouTube, which is huge. I mean, millions and millions of subscribers. So most of you probably heard of it. You can look for this. They talk about why is DK, did DK's bananas make him big? And there's this whole scientific, ridiculous 25-minute video about why New Donk City is big and why is DK trying to get all of his bananas back when there's bananas in every level everywhere, right. but what's so the banana horde's different. I don't know. It's hard for me to articulate because I saw it 2 months ago, but it's worth checking out because it's pretty funny.
It's a Matt Pat video game.
Yeah, theorist. Exactly, and it's really fun. It's just ridiculous, but it's pretty funny because you do think, well, there's a lot of bananas in this game. What does the horde have to do with how many bananas can there be? So
right.
And so, like we said, there's Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. You also have Cranky Kong, who provides some hints and comic relief. He was actually supposed to be really nice initially, but they made him real grumpy old man, and he says a lot of funny things. He was there's one line that cracked me up. I hadn't played this in so long. He said like kids your age like wouldn't realize a good game if they were in it. I don't know. I thought that was really funny. I don't know.
He's great about breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, it's really funny. And he's in like all the more modern ones and stuff too. Like most of these characters are.
Which he is
a playable character. Yeah.
He's a playable character in Tropical Freeze, but he's also the original Donkey Kong.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
For him, it's kind of this new age where, he remembers having to throw barrels to save Pauline from the evil Jumpman or anything. But he's shriveled up a little bit. But yeah, he even challenges you to speed run the game, actually.
Really?
In one scene after the credits, he says, I could have got all of it, and beating it all in under an hour or something. So he challenges you.
If you beat it in under an hour, does it still say that?
Yes, but you have to get everything. You have to get 101%. Now, I'm not going to lie. I've never 101%ed that game. So I actually don't know what he says at that point. It might be whoa. Like to see there's great speedrunners out there beating in like 40 minutes, getting everything, be like, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could do that.
That's so funny. And so there's Cranky, there's Candy, who operates the island save points, and Funky, he just lets you fly around the island. There's 40 side-scrolling levels. There's actually an extra one. There's 41 in the Game Boy Color game. I don't know much about that game, to be honest. I own it, and I don't know. Super Nintendo ports to the Game Boy Color are not necessarily strong. Game Boy Color is a dark spot in the world. So there's unique aspects in the game, like there's different animals you can use to ride around the levels. There's Rambi the rhino, Espresso the ostrich, I've always liked that name, On Guard the swordfish, and Winky the frog, and Squawks the parrot. And then there's also probably one of the more unique parts of this compared to other side-scrolling platforms is these barrels that shoot you across different parts, and sometimes they're set up to be used as puzzles, sometimes they automatically shoot you, so that's pretty cool. And the player can switch between DK and Diddy. Diddy is a lot faster, more agile, and DK is stronger. And so it also essentially works as your life bar, your one-hit death, but if you have the other one backed up, you can keep swapping between them, and then you can pick up barrels to recharge. And then there's also multiplayer mode in this game. I wasn't aware of this, but there's a contest mode where each player controls a different set of Kongs, and you actually race to beat each level as quickly as possible. And then there's a team mode where I think each player controls one of the Kongs, so you guys switch off. And then there's this overall map screen, kind of like in Super Mario World, that kind of you navigate to go from level to level. So, as we said, the reception was really high. It received a lot of awards and high rankings, but also I thought this was interesting in doing some of my research and reading, which is mostly Wikipedia, let's be honest. But it was considered overrated by a lot of magazines and places at the time, and there's even this whole debate or rumor that Miyamoto said that the game was mediocre, and that he said it just proves that mediocre gameplay, people will still love it if it has good graphics. And then when Donkey Kong Country Returns came out, he commented on that, and he said, no, I helped with the game, because he did consult on the game and do some stuff. He just wasn't the director or the in charge of it, and he basically said no, that wasn't the case. But the reason some people think that he was frustrated with it or argued against it was that Yoshi's Island was maybe supposed to be pre-rendered, and if you know Yoshi's Island, it's in this kind of gorgeous cartoonish colory I love it. I think it's a beautiful really game. But you see one thing in the beginning that's pre-rendered, and some people think that, and apparently it was supposed to be pre-rendered, and there was arguments, a debate about it, and obviously they decided not to. But some people think that initial cutscene that has that pre-rendered thing was kind of what the game was supposed to be, and what he was arguing against. So a little controversy there, but yeah, it is normally rated as one of the better Super Nintendo games, which is obviously a really strong system. One thing I remember.
Definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I mean, the trilogy is definitely a well-remembered series, but you do get a lot of people. I mean, and this is with any piece of media, you're gonna have a lot of people say it's overrated, saying that what comes with a game that is simple in scope at the beginning outside of its graphics and music, just in its gameplay, that people can say it can be a little bland, that it is a lot of holding right and jumping. But you got, I mean, a lot of people who will say, oh, there's more variety to it than you would think. And sometimes, I mean, I've always said, I think the level design, the stuff that you actually platform through, is where the creativity of that gameplay shines through. Even if it, I mean, it can definitely fall a little bit into, it's a lot of rolling and jumping.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely some of the best, at least in my opinion, level design you're going to find in a platformer.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the series and enjoyed it as a kid. I haven't played it much lately, but I've had to play the Donkey Kong Land games, which are similar, although not as good for sure. Well, I did for Game Boy Quest. I had to.
Yeah.
So
you've done all 3.
I've done 2 of the 3. The first one's really bad. The second one was pretty good. The third one's the best. That's what I've heard. So that's good news for me. One thing I do remember as a kid, though, my mom worked a second job at Blockbuster when I was a kid. I don't know if she was doing that at the time, but that's where I got a lot of my cheap games at the time. I remember she would like come home with, like, she gave me Earthbound because it was like $5 in the bin. She's like, here's a game, you know, here's Zombies Ate My Neighbors, here's Pocky and Rocky, like just games that. But we lost them all in the storage unit. That's a whole different story. But I used to play all these games. But anyways, there's a Blockbuster competition where you would go in and you would compete to try and get the top score. And so there was this Donkey Kong Country competition cart that was basically a cut-down version of the game, changed a couple things, and you're trying to get as many bananas and things as you can to get as many points. And then the competition, you know, like you go to your local Blockbuster and compete in it and try and move on to whatever. I did not. I was cocky, too. I think I felt like I deserved to, like, oh, I'm good at video games. I play video games all the time. And then I was like, I didn't do that well, and I was very sad about it. But it was used, this Donkey Kong competition cart was used for some event called PowerFest 94, the championship finals. I don't know what that is. I probably should have looked into that. And then this Nintendo Blockbuster World Video Game Championships 2. This is the second one that happened in 1995. 10-year-old little John. This was a qualifier, and afterwards the carts were sold in Nintendo Power subscriber catalogs, and so there's a super limited amount of these in existence. So for the people who are like Super Nintendo completionists that are trying to get every Super Nintendo cart, this is like probably the most expensive Super Nintendo game to get. It's like $1,000 to $2,000 loose, because there's only, you know, so many. That and Hagane are like the Blockbuster specific video games that, like, I should own, actually, but that people,
I gotta imagine is about in the same boat.
Yeah,
probably a $1,000 buy.
Yeah, so I mean, I spent $235 on a potato game this week from a guy in Finland, and I felt dumb enough doing that. I couldn't spend $2,000, but maybe I'm just not a full-on collector. I don't know.
$2,000 on just a cut-down version of
like
another game you could find for like $10.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, but it's a cool piece of video game history, and that's kind of what's fun with collecting. So, yeah, that's kind of just the background I wanted to give. Any last thoughts before we take a break and do some reviews?
No, other than someone with one of these few carts actually offered Donkey Kong Country Championship cart for a Games Done Quick, I believe, in the last year.
Wow.
I guess he was going to go through and just get all the points, do whatever you could do.
Oh.
5 levels.
Oh, like as a submission.
As a submission.
I thought you meant as a prize.
Oh, no.
Because sometimes people donate stuff. Yeah, people donate stuff as prizes sometimes, and I thought you meant as a prize.
That need to be like a $50 buy-in.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But he offered it. I was like, this is kind of a cool little piece of history. I mean, I think they overlooked him for, I guess, the more established community, the fuller game runs. But just kind of cool that I don't know where this guy offered that, and I didn't know it was that rare to find.
Yeah, it's quite expensive, and it's similar to, I mean, the Nintendo World Championships cart is the other big one. That was the event where, and they just recently did a new one where, like, I know the Mexican runner TMR was out there, and there was all this stuff.
Sinister One was there. Yeah.
Similar thing where you had to get as many coins as you could in like a minute for Mario, and then you had to beat Tetris, and like the other one was like Rad Racer or something like that, and it was similar where it was cut down to like 5 minutes of gameplay, and you had to get as many points as you could. So kind of cool that they had stuff like that back then. I guess now with the I guess that's kind of a cool nostalgic point, is like now with the internet and stuff like that, like you can just compete against anybody at any time, and there's like nothing like special about like you could just mod a game and make it do stuff like that, but like back then that was like you couldn't practice for the DKC, you know, blockbuster thing. You couldn't like download this version and practice it. Like you would just and you wouldn't even know what like was expected of you till you got there. So it's just like, I don't know, different times, man. It reminds me of every Seinfeld episode's ruined by the cell phone. It's the same thing. So let's go ahead and take a quick break, listen to some more of that fresh music, and then we'll go ahead and go through our ratings. Word. So I can go ahead and kick this off, and then I'll just kind of be like, you know, set you up, and we'll both say our thoughts on each. Cool. So like we do every week, we're going to do a quick review of Donkey Kong Country. We're going to go over the graphics. We're going to talk about the music and sound, the controls and gameplay, the difficulty and fairness, the fun and replayability. I love how all these are like 2 different words. Take any miscellaneous thoughts that we have and then give it an overall rating. So first off, and I feel like this one's kind of maybe the more controversial one in 2017 as to like how these graphics have aged, but what do you think of the graphics?
I still think the graphics are very pretty to this day. It's actually not a comment on Donkey Kong Country 1, but I think of like Donkey Kong Country 2, where yet even though they had all this technology they got to play with, you know, this was the game that once and for all kind of put Nintendo over that initial war with Sega and the Genesis, was this game and how beautiful it was and everything. So you naturally think, okay, it's you know, Yoshi's Island, which we brought up earlier in the show, that's always going to be pretty. Yeah. Because it's, you know, it's just, it doesn't try to work outside of its box it's working in. The graphics worked very well for the Super Nintendo, and that's all good and well. But with Donkey Kong Country, I still look at it, even though they had all this technology to play with, they still just had really pretty, well done backgrounds, very detailed backgrounds. And like so many of them are so, like, to me, I can't think of a lot of like what the levels and the backgrounds looked like and what the characters, their animations were necessarily with most games in the Nintendo and Super Nintendo era, even though I love a lot of those games. Sure. Really, Donkey Kong Country, I specifically have these images of, even before I was speedrunning it, you know, playing it every day, of just all the animations that Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong would have, just the enemies as they would move, the backgrounds. I think of just what the world maps look like. And that was what I was going to bring up about Donkey Kong Country 2. Just go to any of them in any of the games. Go to the world maps and see, specifically, I'm going to bring up Donkey Kong Country 2's World 3, which they're in this swamp, where you go from a swampy level to an underwater broken bridge level to another swamp level to like a boat level to the top of a boat level, and you see it. They made a story out of the art, just making this world map, something that you just run through and then you pick the level. You know, you look at it for 2 seconds in between each level. But the attention to detail they put into that to see like, oh, I can see the story of how Diddy and Dixie in that instance, how the 2 of them moved from that boat to that swamp, and then they went down underwater into this busted up boat, and then the second half of the boat was later on that you get back to in the later parts of the world, and you eventually end up on this platform with a boss on it at the end. And like DKC 1 and 3, like the whole trilogy has that attention to detail about, I feel like, giving you that story through the graphics. Yeah. So yeah, I've personally never felt like Donkey Kong Country, their graphics didn't age well. Sure. And I definitely think games can get to that point. I think you can definitely point at a lot of early 3D games, N64 and PlayStation. But no, Donkey Kong Country, for sure, pretty games, absolutely.
Yeah, I've always been in the camp of pre-rendered graphics aren't my favorite thing, and that they haven't aged that well. And they haven't aged as well as something like, it's easier to look at something like Super Mario World and say that's ageless, and then Mario 64, like this looks like it's, you know, because it's trying to do something we do now, but it's doing it way worse because they didn't have the technology. But yeah, I think you make a lot of good points. The level design, the colors are just bright and vibrant. Every level is different. Every environment is different. And also like you said, the animations of the characters moving or dancing, like the celebrations, the ways the enemies move, it's really impressive for the time, especially. And I mean, there's a lot of games that ended up doing this pre-rendered thing. I think of like Batman Forever, I think did it, that terrible beat 'em up, or Batman Returns, one of the two. And it looks really weird.
Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Batman Forever.
It looks really bad. It looks really bad.
Awful.
Yeah, it looks so ugly though. So like these have aged better than that. It's still not my favorite way of doing things. I prefer sprite work over pre-rendered. But if you maybe you're not into that or whatever, but just look at the rest of the game and the colors, like you said, the backgrounds, the designs of the enemies and stuff. Most of the enemies are really memorable too. Like you remember like what different enemies look like, the different Kremlins or whatever. The different bosses are memorable. You've got these different animals you can ride on. Those sprites are memorable. So I think the graphics are good, though again, not my favorite with the pre-rendered, but they are really good. And for the time, I mean, we talked about this with Star Fox 64, like Star Fox for Super Nintendo. Those graphics were mind-blowing at the time. They have not aged well at all. These have aged decently better, obviously, but these were just as kind of mind-blowing at the time. This was a big deal, and like we said, this is a big reason why the SNES, succeeded. Like when PS1 and Saturn were coming out, was this game was, sold 9 million copies. So big fan of the graphics.
Second on the console, only to I'm assuming Super Mario.
I'm assuming, yeah, and they usually count the pack-in games, and it's not really fair because it's like you can't even buy the system without buying it.
Without
so it's like,
Super Mario World.
It's basically at least one of the top, two or maybe one if that is the one that beat it, because that's kind of unfair. But everybody would have bought Super Mario World anyways. So, music and sound. I'll start off with this one. The music is amazing in this game. Just listening to a little bit of it today, it was already stuck in my head again. Especially like the underwater level is famously good for just having really beautiful sound. And I watched some videos doing some research, and like there's something about that song that took like 5 weeks for them to be able to pull off because of like the way it's like programmed, and like they had to do a lot of work to get it in the game, but they said it was worth it. But the sounds are like the different sounds they're able to pull off with the Super Nintendo sound chip are like almost to CD quality. Like they're very impressive. There's a lot going on that you wouldn't think could get pulled off on a 16-bit system with that sound card. And there's just a huge variety of it. It's very unique. You kind of have to listen to it. It's a little bit jazzy. It's a little bit like it's got a lot of percussion in it. Very upbeat and also like very like ambient and fitting to the mood. So like if you're in a dark cave or you're in the water, like the water is very peaceful and soothing music, and then like the cave is very like, kind of stressful and dark. The music is really, really good. And then the sound effects, we try and mention those when they matter, and sometimes they're underrated. I really like the sound effects in this game. When you jump on an enemy, it's really satisfying, like squeaking weird noise. The barrels make these explosions. Like everything kind of makes a satisfying, even getting like a bunch of bananas and the noise it makes when they like unravel, like it's all really satisfying. So like this game's like A+ in that department, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the music and the sound, I always say music and sound are strongest in a video game when they remember that they are helping to, I guess, kind of go with the energy of what the gamer is having to do. They kind of drive the energy. So I think about some of the music, like in some of the factory levels, like Oil Drum Alley and others, where you're going through it. And I almost want to like, I want to like sing it in my head right now, but it just drives me to want to, when I was speedrunning the game personally, just I wanted to get through the level, and not like I wanted it to end. I just like I had this. It was inspiring me to do it.
Definitely.
And also David Wise and his team were good about playing with. I don't know if juxtaposition is necessarily like a good term to use here for it, but something that you're underwater and you would think, you hear something like aquatic ambience, the track under there, you think, oh, this is all going to be very peaceful. And there are sharks coming at you. You're being chased by these croctopuses, as they're called. You're trying frantically just to swim around and stay away from them. Your monkey's underwater. It's amazing you can breathe under there. So the fact that they play with something that is so soothing. It is 100% soothing the entire time, and it somehow just works for that sort of an underwater environment, considering how stressful it is. I don't know, I think that's really creative that they were able to play with it with that.
Definitely. Like you said, it does fit the gameplay really well, and that's, I mean, the music is always a support. It's not the main focus, but even when it's really good, it should be supporting what you're visually seeing, because that's what the point of a video game is. You know, you're not popping in a CD, and it fits really well with the action, and like fits really well with the jungle theme when you're in the jungle areas. Like, there's just very unique percussion based like music that's going on. There's a lot of cool instruments being used that you don't hear in a lot of video games. I think it's awesome. In terms of the controls and gameplay, I mean, it has been a hot minute since I've played this game. I used to play it all the time, but from what I remember, this game controls really well. I didn't have much issue with it. I didn't speedrun it, so I can't speak to some stuff like the hitboxes and whatnot, but I remember it controlling well. I can definitely speak to the gameplay when I say the gameplay is a lot of fun. Some of the barrel sections can get frustrating when you're like casually playing it. I mean, there's stuff that can be difficult, and we're not talking about, I guess, difficulty, but just in terms of can be frustrating. But for the most part, I think the game design is good. Like, I think they make it fun and engaging and still make it challenging enough. Like, I think they leave enough DK barrels, for example, around the game so that you're not just like getting stuck in spaces where you're, you know, getting one hit killed and frustrated. Like, you know what I mean? The game's not designed to be frustrating. It's designed to be enjoyable. So it's got that right balance of like setup, and like you said, it's built to kind of run through fast and roll and enjoy. So tell me about the controls, since you've got so much more experience, especially in the speedrunning perspective. It's so important to have quality controls.
Yeah, I absolutely always thought the game was very responsive the whole time. It's I don't know, it's smooth as butter, and it's a simple game to control at the same time. It's, you know, at the end of the day, you can kind of just run through the game and just, like, you know, hold right, you instantly hit your top speed, your top intended speed, I guess. You have ways to go faster, and then you can just jump and then roll through enemies. I think naturally a lot of people, when they play the game casually, they don't think they roll that much.
I don't, because it's scary. That's the one thing I would say is I feel like the rolling in the Donkey Kong games has always been something, and I'd love to hear your input on this. Maybe this is, as a speedrunner, not as obvious, but I would always feel like sometimes I would take damage when I didn't feel like I should, and sometimes I wouldn't. Like, the frames of the rolling animation where I am dealing damage versus receiving damage are not necessarily like clear with the action that I'm seeing. So I think that's why casual players are like, I'll just jump on the head.
And it's just a bunch of, you know, you played Super Mario World, probably. If you owned a Super Nintendo and you played Donkey Kong Country, you probably played Super Mario World before that. So you're like, okay, I hold right and I jump on things. That's it. And that's why I think I remember as a kid, I mostly jumped on things. Definitely the roll animation is something that doesn't always make sense unless you are practically, I mean, you're like pretty close to an enemy, then rolling through them is not going to work. You really have to understand there's a lot of nuance to how long a roll will last, and we'll get into that a lot more in the speedrunning scene. So that is probably something. It can be easy to turn this game from a 2-button game into a effectively 1.5-button game, because this is something that I will say is genuinely a problem with the game control wise, is that one button becomes all powerful, and in this game it's the Y button, which is, it's your roll button, but it's also your go fast button. It's your run button, so you're going to be holding that down the entire time. So if you want to roll through something, if you want to do a cartwheel with Diddy or a roll with Donkey, then you have to actually release the run button and then repress it to start that roll. So I think that is something that just feels a very powerful tool, and if you know how to use it, then it's very strong. But definitely in casual play, it's nice to just, I guess, probably rock the thumb up and down and just hold that run button down and just jump on things constantly. Definitely something that you're going to see a lot more for certainly your first time playing the game.
Yeah. Do you feel like the frames are like representative of what's happening in terms of like if I roll at something that's further away from me, like I'll still be technically rolling, but maybe I'm coming out of the roll, maybe I'm not, but I take damage. You have to be really up on something to be sure that you're gonna do like roll through it. So that's like I think that's kind of a knock on the game, I guess. I think they could have maybe designed that a bit better.
If you don't understand how far your roll's gonna go, it actually, if you just do a straight up roll in the game, one extension of it, it doesn't go very far at all. So it's something you definitely have to, like, you almost think of it more as an attack.
Yeah.
That has to be like right on something. There are various ways to extend that, obviously, and we'll get into it. But no, it's something that I would say this game overall has like pretty friendly hitboxes.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely you win a lot of situations that aren't just 50-50, but situations where you think, oh, there's no way.
Yeah,
that should have worked. There's no way I should have won that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely understanding that full roll sometimes will get you killed. Probably if it's your first time playing the game, you need to make a decision right up front. Am I going to learn how to roll? I think you make the game, because everyone talks about this game as a very challenging game. And I do think it is. I think it's a very tough game. And that's for most people, because if you decide at the beginning, I'm going to learn how to use the roll, then the game becomes very manageable.
Yeah.
Because it just allows you to get over so many gaps much easier. You can roll and then jump out of a roll, even if you're in mid-air, to clear gaps or clear over enemies or go through enemies. You can kill certain enemies, even though Diddy's considered the little fast one. He can kill enemies that otherwise he couldn't kill if he jumped on their heads.
Yeah.
If you roll through them. So I think for a lot of people, when you hear people say, this is one of the hardest platformers I've ever played, I think it's ultimately people who took a 2-button game and turned it into a 1.5-button game.
Sure.
That's always what I've believed about it.
Okay.
And it's definitely like, it still has its challenging aspects as a platformer, but I think it gets much, much harder when you just don't want to use that roll function.
Yeah,
that's what the game is effectively built around.
Strange is a Super Nintendo game that it only really uses 2 buttons when there's so many buttons on the controller. It's like it could be an NES game. That's kind of interesting.
L&R's just chilling over there. Select doesn't do anything. Yeah.
And that's weird that the roll and the run buttons are the same too. It makes kind of sense when you play it, but like it's also like, well, you have all these other buttons. You'd think they would have just been like, well, we'll just put it on another button. So,
right.
But you kind of covered difficulty and fairness mostly in the gameplay. Sure, it's pretty challenging, but I don't think it's unfair. At least I'd say it's a good challenge, especially like you said, if you're a completionist and you want to get everything. Like that's one really fun thing about this game is like there's a lot of hidden objects. There's a lot of hidden like. You throw a barrel into this side of the wall and it opens up and you can get something in there like your mini game or whatever. So, or like if you try and get all the Kong letters in every level, like they're always hidden in like kind of difficult places. I also always appreciated they're in alphabetical order. So like you get the K and then you get the N, or not alphabetical order, but in the name, the word Kong.
Of Kong.
So you get the K and then you get the N. You're like, oh, I missed the O. Those somewhere between the K and the N.
Somewhere between. Yeah, it's like brilliant little like kind of leading the gamer level design there without specifically telling you.
Yeah, if it was just 4 generic items, you would have no clue where it might be, if they weren't in spelling out this thing. So,
and it gives you an idea of how well you are as the gamer are doing in that level. Like, oh, I just saw the G. I know I'm close.
I'm almost there. Yeah, I'm like really close.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'd say fair.
Yeah, I definitely think the game is fair. I think what this game, probably where a lot of its difficulty comes from, the most frustrating aspects, in addition to people just not using the roll function, is that it's the same thing that 90s gamers had to deal with. There was still a life system.
Yeah.
And if you weren't going really out of your way to find every banana and go in all the secret little bonus levels and actually defeat the bonus levels, the game did not hand out lives super easily.
Yeah.
And you can grind through them very quickly.
Yeah, but this is, I mean, this is 16-bit. Like, you can save in different places. Like,
You can, but sometimes the save point was pretty far into the different worlds. Like, you brought up Candy Kong. Kind of, I think, the most infamous world, for I know myself as a kid and everybody I've ever seen play the game, is World 4 of this game. There are generally 6 levels per world and then a boss. You don't get access to Candy Kong until after you've defeated, I believe, 5 of the 6 levels. So that's 5 levels in a row that you have to go through. And that's definitely where the game just goes from a pretty chill experience to actually really hard. And you got lots of crazy barrel levels. You're dealing with ice physics in that world, a very long, stressful water level. So all of a sudden, people would just, they would die there, go back to when they saved, which was in World 3, over and lose like 6, 7 levels of progress every time.
Yeah.
That's kind of the famous one. You still had a life system, and you still had a save system that you had to deal with constantly.
Sure.
That, I don't know. I'd like to see more platformers just say, there's no lives. There's nothing we have to worry about. Or save whenever you want.
See, I guess for me, since I grew up on NES, and I did beat this game as a kid, and I didn't beat a lot of NES games. Like, it's not cryptic, obviously. You know what you have to do. You have saves. You can grind and get a bunch of lives if you want. You can look for bananas. You can find extra lives. Like I'm thinking of games where you have like 3 lives, and like Contra, you're you know, you're 2/3 of the way through the game, you die, and okay, well, you got to start over again. Like, I mean, it's I never thought of this game as being that difficult, so I didn't even know it had that reputation until kind of really now that we're talking. But but there's challenging points.
I agree with you. I mean, people need to get good at platformers.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's the fun, right? I mean,
right.
Like, that's what the challenge is. But I do remember it being pretty challenging. I mean, the Donkey Kong Land and games are challenging as well. More in cheap design ways, though. And I don't think this game, Donkey Kong Country, at least this one, doesn't have cheap design, in my opinion, for like levels to get. I mean, it's just difficult stuff, difficult execution, not blind jumps, not like stupid hidden stuff, not, you know, just unfair placement of enemies. So in terms of fun and replayability, just to wrap this up for time purposes, I think we both agree this is a really fun game. It does have a lot of replayability because it tells you what percentage of the game you've beaten, and you can go back and try and find all the different hidden things. This is kind of where we started seeing games gain more replayability, because this is a tough area to talk about. Like, when we're on the NES and we're talking about platformers, there's really no replayability to like Mega Man 2, really. I mean, you can play different robot orders or whatever, or like Super Mario Brothers 2. Like, you could play with different characters for different levels, but you know, we're finally starting to get to the point where you can have content that you don't need to beat the game. So there's definitely reasons to replay this. And obviously Miscellaneous is kind of just like this graphics that they, you know, this pre-rendered new style. And it's a huge success, and kind of rebooted this Donkey Kong franchise that wasn't really, you know, anything for 9 years, 7 years, 8 years. Because, I mean, the Donkey Kong games on NES are just like the arcade game. There was no, like, this really established a real Donkey Kong character. It's actually like the only one that's been able to really convert an arcade character to a viable, you know, they've tried to do it with Pac-Man, they've tried to do it with Frogger, they've tried to do it with Space Invaders. Like, it hasn't worked for any other arcade game, but for some reason for Donkey Kong, I mean, they just remade it so different from the gameplay. Those other games are kind of try and stick to the old gameplay. It's probably the only real success story of that kind of idea, I feel like.
I can't think of another. You think through all of, I think through like Super Smash Brothers rosters.
Yeah.
I'm like, all of them were initially established in a home console.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Mario, Zelda, Sonic, Link, all these guys. And so like, Donkey Kong, he actually had to start on an arcade forever ago.
Yeah.
Even if it was Cranky Kong. So.
Kind of a thought that just popped in my head. I feel like it was really good. I feel like that's what the people are paying for. They're paying for these kind of thoughts right here.
Oh yeah, podcast. Right there, man.
Except it's free. Free podcast. So overall rating. So from 0 to 10, just so you know, we are not IGN. So like 5 is an average game. So we really use the whole scale. The lowest I've given a game is 0.5. That was Escape from Atlantis.
Okay.
Which wasn't even released. I mean, not really fair. And we've given games 10s, so we've used the whole range. What would you say? You're probably gonna rate it higher than me, so.
I would give this game a very solid, because I'm a little bit of a harsh critic.
Okay.
I play a lot of platformers. I would say this is a solid 7 or 8.
Okay.
Like whichever, maybe goes up to an 8. I would almost say because of its music.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, definitely super fun platformer. Very straightforward, though. Doesn't try to be too ambitious, unlike its later reincarnations or its later the sequels and whatnot.
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say 7.5, so we're basically on the same page
right
there.
Yep.
I would be willing to go up to an 8 because, like you said, the music is really good. I don't think I really even realized how good the music was until doing prep for this. I thought of it as like, oh, the Donkey Kong music's good, it's iconic, but then like you go back and listen to it and you're like, oh man, like this is really good music for 16-bit era, like impressive. So, but it's a strong recommend for me. Definitely play it if you haven't played the Donkey Kong Country. I know that sounds dumb, but like somebody was in my chat the other day who said like, I've never played or seen a Contra game before. So like you never know like who's out there that's like just. And that as we get older, get older and older, we're like, we never know what people might not have played. So,
well, man, dude, the 90s, there's I'm not going to mention his name, but there's a very popular streamer on Twitch, Speedrunner, who like never played Super Nintendo games.
Yeah.
He plays lots of Nintendo, the company's games.
Yeah.
But he's never touched a Super Nintendo game. I went, how is this possible?
Sure, I've got speedrunning friends that have never played a Zelda game before. I mean, you just find crazy stuff. So go check out Donkey Kong Country if you haven't. Unless you've never played a Zelda game before or something, then go do that, because what are you doing? But yeah, so strong recommend. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and then Senor Spikevegeta is going to educate us on the speedrun here.
Heck yeah.
Okay, so I'll just go through the, you're doing great, by the way. I'll just go through the categories and kind of like the times, and then I'll just kind of start passing off things to you and like kind of interview style, but just whatever you want to tell us, you tell us.
Sounds good.
So as Spikevegeta said so wisely, this is a sweet speed game, and it's got a lot of cool things going on with it. Like many games, it has multiple different categories for speedrunning. The main category, or probably the most serious competitive category, is all stages, and that's what the tournament is going on right now that we recommended in the top of the episode. You're going to notice a lot of recurring names on these leaderboards. So all stages, Peachy, P-I-C-H-I, is that how they pronounce it?
Yes.
Okay. Has a 32.19. Favlo has a 32.31. So 12-second difference there. And then Eason has a 32.33. I think they're the only three who are under 33 minutes. Then you have 101%, which is essentially 100%, but the game gives you 101% because the game is funny. Peachy, again, with a 46.10, and Eason with a 46.11. That's a 1-second difference there. That's crazy. In the longest category. Then there's a very short category, under 10 minutes, any percent, also known as 7%. And that's, again, Peachy with an 804.6, Eason with an 805.28, and Favlo with an 807. And then something called Old Summon, which I guess Spike will have to tell us what that is. I don't even know what that is. That sounds daunting. Sounds scary, but guess who has the world record in that?
I'm going to go with, 3 for 3 so far. Is it Peachy?
Yeah, it's Peachy with a 1642, Eason with a 1648, and Favlo with a 1659. I was shocked when I went through the leaderboards. I'm like, man, these three guys, like, or girls, I don't know who they are, but these three streamers, speedrunners are, like, just dominating this game in all the categories. Because usually you see, like Link to the Past, somebody will do, any percent or do some different category, and then the top might be a bit different. But these guys love them some Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
So
you'll find kind of specialists in certain categories, but here these three have been playing this game for years.
Yeah.
It's after a while, it's just hard to keep up with it.
I feel like they would probably win the Donkey Kong Country competition at Blockbuster if it were to happen right now.
Maybe not. I saw the submission by that guy I brought up earlier.
Oh, that's true.
It's a really, it's like you said, it was kind of a random assortment of things you had to do to like route it out. Like, I'm going to go over here and get these bananas, and we over here and jump on this. It's not just like speed running the game.
That's such a cool idea.
Yeah, it'd be funny to like challenge these guys and be like, all right, who can kind of route out just in their head, oh, I gotta get points.
Yeah.
Be fun to see.
So let's talk about some of the main tech for this game. So tell us about the tech. I feel like it's going to involve a lot of rolling. So you like to roll in this game?
Oh, you roll at any point if you can find a place to fit in Diddy Kong, who you want to be using more often. But even if you're Donkey, if you can find a time where you're not rolling, you should probably find a way to make that little segment a rolling segment.
Yeah.
Even if it's for like splits of seconds.
Yeah.
So again, it's, we've brought it up multiple times now. It's a very simple game on the surface. You press a motto within the community is you press Y and you win.
Yeah.
Everyone just press Y and stay calm. Stay calm and press Y, something like that. I don't know the exact saying, but I'm a rookie. But yeah, you want to find as much time to roll as you can. So you're kind of, when you roll in this game, if you just roll with Diddy, he just kind of goes a little distance. And I should always say, like with Diddy or Donkey. Actually, let me get this out of the way first before we even
Diddy is faster.
Diddy is faster.
Yeah.
If you're Donkey, you are dead. So if you definitely want like a criticism on the gameplay, to go back to that segment, Donkey Kong is a very bad character.
Yeah.
From a gameplay standpoint.
He doesn't jump as high. He doesn't move as fast. He's just a little bit stronger, which isn't really a useful attribute in this game.
In a platformer, so there's two enemies that he can jump on. There's two or three types of enemies that he can jump on that Diddy can't.
Or he has to jump on them twice, right?
Where Diddy has, there's one enemy, the armadillo, is called the Army. That Diddy has to jump on them twice, or Donkey can just jump on them once.
Yeah.
He's also got like a slap mechanic that is unique to him, where you can like unlock little secrets in the levels and stuff. But for the most part, you just want to stay as Diddy the entire time. Another motto in this community: if you're Donkey, you're dead. So that's why I'm gonna a lot of times say when you're playing as Diddy, because in the course of a speed run of this, about 95% of the time you want to be Diddy Kong.
Yeah.
And there's very few times you want to ever switch to Donkey Kong, and it's usually for kind of shoehorned in little segments where you just have to play as him.
Yeah.
In order to get to a secret barrel that only he can access.
Because like you took damage or you took damage and you're doing some trick or it's pretty rare.
Yeah. So you'll oftentimes see a speedrunner, if they get hit with Diddy and lose him, then all of a sudden they're playing as Donkey. The best speedrunners in the world, these guys we just mentioned, Peachy, Eason, Favla, like they'll all of a sudden go from the best looking players in the world to oh no, I don't know what to do.
I don't use this character.
So
much like the Carlson Thanksgiving dinner, there are many roles in this game. There's a variety of roles to choose from. So tell us about the variety of roles at our exposure here.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys a lot of names of tech, and they're all going to involve one word in particular. You got extendo rolls, you got jump rolls, you got tire rolls, you got these things we'll eventually called super jump rolls. Yeah. Basically, your bread and butter technique is the first one I just mentioned there, called extendo rolls. So when Diddy Kong does his cartwheel or his roll, he only goes a little distance. However, basically kind of like one unit of Diddy, I guess, over.
One D.
One D unit. One do. But if he rolls through an enemy, you go basically twice as far, or even potentially further, depending on what the terrain is. Because effectively going through an enemy refunds your roll. So if you got a nice little row of enemies that Nintendo or Rare is nice enough to give you at a number of times in this game, you can roll through a chain of them, and you pick up speed as you go. So that's kind of a natural. If you're not even thinking about speedrunning the game, you're like, oh, that looks really fast, and it is. Through each successive enemy, up to like 4 or 5 of them, you keep getting faster.
Wow.
But they all need to be very close to one another, so it's very limited in its use throughout the game. However, through use of this bread and butter technique called the extendo rolls, you can go much further distances. And it's kind of simple in concept. It's really just, if you're getting into speedrunning it, you're memorizing just, all right, so I'm holding Y to run. I walk up to an enemy, I release it, and then I repress Y to roll through them. And then I release again at a certain point in Diddy's animation, and then I repress it again at a later point, as opposed to just holding Y and letting the roll finish out.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, a lot of times you can make the roll go further than it would have if you had just held Y the entire time.
Yeah.
So if there are two enemies, but they're separated by a decent amount, you can possibly do that to roll through each of them and then go really far afterwards.
Yeah. One of the early levels has a really long extendo roll, right? Like
yeah,
one of the earlier levels has like a whole level long extendo roll, basically.
The very first level of the game, actually, if you're getting into speedrunning at Homecoming Hijinks, there is just these two little Kremlings that are standing on these platforms. You roll through one, you release it, you press at the end of a platform, which will extend Diddy just far enough to roll over that gap through the second enemy, rolling you off of a platform, and then a long ways away, there are these two other enemies that you can then take your hand off a Y and repress again through each of them, and you end up going like half the level across.
Yeah, it's awesome looking.
Little roll animation. It's kind of right off the bat. You say, "Oh, this is going to be a cool run." If you're watching it, like all of a sudden,
it's definitely so as a casual observer, and I don't think it's an incredibly difficult trick too, because I know I've seen runners who have, you know, not super amazing times at this, like doing this pretty consistently. So it's something that you could probably pick up and learn if you're looking to learn some cool tricks. But
it's literally learning
timing, right?
It's timing. Yeah, it's just memorizing. I let go here. I repress here. Yeah. They actually make straight up just charts of the level.
Yeah.
And showing, all right, you're gonna press it here. You're gonna hold it here. You're gonna tap it here.
Yeah.
You know, and it might all sound a little like ambitious to get into. I will always defend this as a great first speed game for people. You learn this stuff, and you learn that in the very first level. Don't skip it. Don't just go past it and just roll through each of them individually. Do that. All of a sudden, you are well equipped for the rest of the game. Because like I said, extendo rolls, this is your bread and butter, and you're going to use it all throughout the run.
So question for you real quick as a side, like a little rabbit trail is, I kind of wanted to bring this up earlier. Are the platforms well represented by what they look like? Because aren't the edges kind of like really weird in this game of the platforms, or?
The edges for sure, depending on what kind of edge it is.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a cave and it's kind of the edge of one of the little cliffs, so it's not like, say, in the factory levels where you've got these very hard surfaces, you know, angled surfaces. You know, it's curved in levels like the cave levels or in the jungle levels, where
I'm thinking of the jungles.
Stand there, you'll probably slide right off. So in that way, I think they're well represented.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You kind of have to understand, like, all right, if I go too close to this edge, Diddy or Donkey will slip off.
Okay. Okay. That's a good defense. That's a good defense.
That's good. Well, you were like, I don't really trust these platforms.
I think I've heard Chad. I think I remember Chad complaining about it a lot when he was running this game, like literally 3 years ago, and it stuck with me for some reason. So.
All right.
Weird memory. Shots fired at Chad, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with him. Not like because I would like to hear, because I have a lot of respect for Chad.
Well, this was 3 years ago, and he was probably just actually running and annoyed. But I felt like I remembered that, like, and rolling off of a ledge, like, it's kind of weird to know, like, again, obviously if you're doing this casually, we see that the rolling mechanic is broken, which is what makes the run interesting. And so, like, sometimes you'll roll further off the edge or not, you know, and so that might factor into, as, like, in the casual experience, the edges are a bit odd if you're rolling off them. But that might have more to do with the rolling mechanic than the actual, you know, ledges. But anyways, that aside, so you've got extendo rolls. What about jump rolls?
So jump rolls are, if extendo rolls were your bread and butter, this is your ultimate ace in the hole, I guess, of this run. They are frame perfect tricks, which is a term thrown around a lot in speedrunning. These ones are particularly frustrating because this game, as you can see, the competition for this game has been going on for, you know, a couple of decades now, basically, for getting these top times. People are separated by mere seconds. There are jump rolls in this game, which a jump roll, to note, is if you, on the frame that you would bounce off of an enemy, if you tap Y, you know, if you bounce off of an enemy, you're in this little jump animation where Diddy's, you know, kind of rolled up in a ball as he bounces off of them. If you tap Y, which is the roll button, on the frame that you would get the bounce, you're in this jump roll animation, which is the name of the technique, where basically you just fly through the sky. You just fly forward in the level. You're going at a pretty good speed. The problem with it is it's a little limited in where you can use it, because there's lots of places where you can just try to do that. Hey, you can bounce off an enemy nearly anywhere. But you need enough straight space, clear room, nothing getting in your way, and that you wouldn't be able to just roll through the level and go a little bit faster anyways.
Yeah.
The problem with the jump rolls is that there are, in terms of just a vanilla jump roll, there's 3 of them in the game that you can use right now. That one of them saves about 4 seconds. One saves about 8 or 9 optimally, probably closer to 15 if you're using lower end strats in that level. One of them saves at the highest level 55 seconds.
Oh, wow.
In a game that's 32 minutes long, that is, I mean, you talk about speedrunners, they find a 1 second time save. That is a huge deal in a game like this.
Sure.
That's like genuinely something to pound your chest over. 55 seconds, that's, and it's a frame perfect trick. It's a frame perfect trick in World 6.
And you get one try at it?
And you get one shot at it. There's a backup to it that's also more beginner friendly. That is 42 seconds saved, I believe. That I commonly go for, I know, as one of the lower end players.
Yeah.
That's still, you get to a point where you're trying to get a personal best, and you get it 25 minutes into this 32-minute run. For those of us, like 28 minutes into a 35-minute run, and you get one shot at hitting this frame, and you miss it, you probably don't PB all of a sudden.
Yeah, that sucks. It's always frustrating when those tricks are the end of runs and not the beginning. It makes a huge difference.
But in defense of them, because I've been very negative talking about them, because some people will say, yes, because some people will say, like, oh, they ruin the speed run. You especially look at, like, when these games are on display on Showcase at events like Games Done Quick, or any other online marathon or a live marathon, ESA or anything. Hitting those is a great way to get the audience to pop off, because they know it's frame perfect and it just looks amazing. All of a sudden, you're just flying through the air, nothing helping you out. It's pretty sick.
Yeah. It's funny that this GDQ, more than any other ones, I noticed a lot of negative feedback, because I'm an idiot and I read like YouTube comments and stuff about like people claiming tricks to be frame perfect, and just people being frustrated, being like, everything can't be frame perfect or whatever. So be careful out there. Only say frame perfect when it actually is frame perfect.
Yes, because I'm not going to lie, even though I've been a part of the speedrun community for a while and I want it to grow and everything, even I sometimes am like,
yeah, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
I can confirm jump rolls actually frame perfect. They're super frustrating to hit, but when you hit them, it's like this rush of adrenaline just shoots through your body.
Yeah, the RNG manipulation I got at the beginning of my Avenging Spirit run is actually, I'm pretty sure it's actually frame perfect. It's technically pixel perfect, but it's moving by. And I didn't know I got it until way later, because I don't normally get it, so I didn't practice as if I was going to get it.
Right.
So it was pretty cool to get that. That's why I PB'd. That's a big reason why I PB'd. So there you go.
Oh, nice.
So, but yeah, just be careful out there. I saw a lot of feedback where people are just like getting frustrated about hearing that, which maybe they're more frame perfect tricks than we know. I don't know. Yeah. But I hear it a lot, and you're just like, I can't. Oh, there's no way all of these are frame pixel perfect, sub-pixel manipulation, like.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also, just to play devil's advocate and say to the people on the outside who don't know, I like to assume the best in people. And I think the instances where we say frame perfect in any speed game just is such a buzzword to people. They just hear that and they go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think it, like, after a while, like, those moments stick out to you so much. Like, there's no way there's this many. We're talking about over the course of hundreds and hundreds of video games that will showcase it, like Games Done Quicks and stuff. Like, I'm sure that, like, almost any game could find a frame perfect trick. I can say also for certain that I've seen tricks, like there's a trick in a game I run. Again, I'm not going to call it the run or anything, but I remember them always saying, yeah, there's like a two. If they ever say Leica, you know it's BS.
Yeah.
You know there's no way. This is like a 2-frame window.
It's like 8.
I get it like 90% of the time. I'm like, it's got to be like 8 frames,
yeah.
dude. I am not that. Anything under 3 frames, genuinely, it's almost impossible to be just 100% consistent.
Absolutely. Unless there's like a very clear like physical cue or music cue that can some of those are helped by that, and so not all frame perfect tricks are obviously created equal, and depending on what you're doing for that frame, you know, who knows. But anyways, I'm the rabbit trail one here. You're the one. Normally I'm the one pushing things around, you know. Okay.
All right, I'm pulling it back. So moving on.
So we got jump rolls, we got extendo rolls, tire rolls. Basically you're doing an extendo roll off a tire essentially.
Yeah, but tires are supposed to be something in this game that just gives you a nice bounce. It bounces you up in the air. We don't want vertical movement. We want to be going horizontal through a lot of these levels. So the tops of tires will bounce you up, and you can't roll off of that part, but the edges of each of them you can. So there are certain levels especially where you use these a lot, just called a tire roll, where you get to the edge of the tire before you roll off of it. And it can be pretty scary to watch in a run because your timing's a little off. It's going to eat your Y input, your roll input, and you just go into a pit or something.
Yeah, so, I think they're used in like, there's that level that has like a lot of like treetop forts almost, right?
Yeah,
they use a lot in there, and it's terrifying to watch as like even someone not running it, because you're just like, you know, like, especially if you watch somebody who's like not, you know, a top tier runner, and then you watch a top tier runner, like, because it's like you've seen so many runs die, like missing just one tire roll or missing one whatever, you fall right into the, you know, these huge gaps in between the trees. That level's impressive for sure, and definitely a clinchy level. So we've also got these super jumps, and along with super jump rolls, which I just put LOL next to. It's just getting ridiculous at this point.
Yeah.
Like super jump, donkey roll, like it's. You guys need more creative names for your tricks, man.
We're not Super Metroid. We don't have things like the glorious name, the Full Happy. Shout out to the Full Happy.
Yeah.
You know, the Sunrise Surprise and everything they call it. We're pretty straightforward in this community, or at least the people who named these things.
Yeah.
This is super jumps.
Ironically, all these rolls are actually cartwheels. That's the other thing we could just get into.
None of them's actually a roll.
Yeah, because you're not even using donkey. But okay, so what is a super jump?
So a super jump is basically a way. I don't know if I can get into all the specifics of it.
Yeah, that's fine. Just overall.
Effectively, you can store a jump by taking damage with a Kong. So usually you'll have it where you take damage with like Diddy Kong. Although I guess there's 2 real usages, and one's with Donkey, one's with Diddy.
Yeah.
Where you'll take damage with that given Kong, and you'll force them into a state where if you watch, so when a Kong dies in the DKC games, you still watch their character kind of run off screen. Like they go, ow, and then they run off. Well, if you can put them in a place where they actually get up against a surface that causes them to jump straight up in the air, then you have stored this super jump. So like there's one level, kind of an infamous level in this game, where you're supposed to ride a rope, and all these vultures and these bees are coming at you. You got to climb up and down the rope and dodge them and everything. Well, there's one level where you instead you take damage with Diddy. Diddy gets up against this wall, which causes him to jump straight up in the air. So he's got this like big jump stored for some reason in that ghost animation or death animation. And then you go up, you get another Diddy Kong barrel, you take damage with Donkey, then Diddy will do his natural little auto jump that you get out of your Kongs taking damage. He'll go forward, and you just hold right Y and B, so right, roll, and jump, and you will naturally bounce off this one enemy if you line it up all correctly, and you absolutely skyrocket off the screen.
Like it's like 30 seconds of you not being on the screen.
You're just it's effectively it's Super Mario World for a while. You're just flying over it. You see you're going way faster than the rope would scroll you through the level. All the vultures and bees are like, oh, I gotta catch up. They're just shooting off screen because they got to get by their segment. And to give you an idea of it, it ends up being, I think, like 40, 45 seconds or so. That I'm making up a time, whatever it is, but you're up there for a while.
Yeah.
You actually let go of B, because that's when you'll start falling back to the ground. I want to give this just for context. You let go of B like a third of the way into jumping up off the screen, and then another like 30 seconds later, if you time it right, you'll land right at the exit.
Yeah.
So that gives you an idea of how quickly you gain height off of it. You're just absolutely skyrocketing off the top of the screen. You finally let go, you're still holding right and Y, and you're very slowly falling back down to the level, and it's always beautiful when you see them land right at the exit.
Yeah, it's a really cool looking trick, and you just don't know what's going on. You see Diddy launch up into the air, and then you don't see him land for a very long time, and that section would probably take, probably a couple minutes normal play, because again, there's no ground to run on. You're jumping in between vines, and like you can only go so fast there, so really, really useful.
And it's definitely a trick, I would say, if anyone was interested in getting into this game. This is a very beginner-friendly trick. It's not frame perfect in any way. You learn very specific cues of where you take the damage, how you set it up. And then from there, it's just kind of memorizing, all right, I let go of buttons at certain points.
Yeah.
This is one absolutely I would recommend day one if you were to learn this game. Learn that trick. It's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
So
there's also super jump rolls? What is a super jump roll?
Talked about super jumps, where you bounce up off the screen and you fly over the level. We've talked about jump rolls, where you basically roll through an enemy the same frame you bounce, and you kind of fly through the level, at a pretty good pace. Now we're going to combine those two, still frame perfect tricks for these as well, unfortunately. There's 3 or possibly 4 of them in good any % all stage runs now. Effectively, you're going to fly off the top of the screen again, but you're going to be going at rolling speed all of a sudden, as opposed to just bouncing up off the air. So all of a sudden, you don't just skyrocket up, you skyrocket to the right. The levels fly by. One level I would recommend, go watch any of these top runners, their best levels. Go watch a level like Misty Mine, which is in World 6, also very late in the run, and watch how fast the level scrolls by. You save, it's like 20, 25 seconds for each one of them you do. The 2 big ones being that and Oil Drum Alley that you can actually go over. I don't know the exact specifics of it. It's one of the last techniques I haven't learned. I guess it's like the last big technique I have not learned for speedrunning this game. But it is effectively putting those 2 together, and instead of you just kind of slowly... Because super jumps are something that you can also do in a lot of different places throughout the game.
But it's slower than rolling throughout the level.
But it's slower than rolling through the enemies and everything. There's lots of places where, oh yeah, you can sacrifice like 7 seconds here, and for a beginner, just do that. Well, they found some places, some applications for the super jump roll where, oh no, we can still fly over the top of the screen, and we're going to go really, 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 really fast the entire time.
And so does the world record currently have all of the super jump rolls? Like all the places? Or do you know?
That's a good question. Because right now, optimally, your run, quote unquote optimally, because there's lots of places where like, oh, I've got a TAS jump roll that I can get for like, they'll say like 2 seconds here. But I think kind of a reasonable optimal run these days would have 3 jump rolls and 3 super jump rolls.
Okay.
We are getting to the point where there's a 4th super jump roll in that level we actually brought up earlier with the tires, Rope Bridge Rumble, that I think is starting to become, we always bring up the term RTA viable. Like, is it viable to be in our runs or not? And it's really more at the point where, well, do runners want to, are we at that point? Do runners want to start putting this in to give themselves that extra little edge to overcome runners, constantly pulling from the tasks? So yeah, I don't know if he would hit all 6 of them, but I guarantee you he probably hit at least 4 of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I could see him still missing 1 or 2 of those, because a lot of these top runners, everything else is almost, these guys, Peachy, Favlo, Eason, they've been playing the game for years. Everything else in the game is almost automatic for them.
Yeah.
They just know they're going to be, basically, within frames of each of their ILs every single time. And it's just, all right, we have to hit 6 frame perfect tricks.
Sure.
So a lot of people call that like, all right, I hit 4 out of the 6 or 5 or 6 of them. I hit the lottery all of a sudden. So I bet you he missed at least one of them. But I don't know. I'd be interested. I've never sat down to watch the current record.
Yeah. So there's also some wrong warps in this game. I know of one where if you're on the overworld map and you're in the plane thing that you can travel between levels.
Yes.
If you hit a certain frame, this is frame perfect again, but like you
get
get
a 7th frame perfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you get a million attempts at it because you can go back and forth between the levels as many times as you want, like in consecutive order until you hit that frame, so you can kind of just mash your way through it, but it skips over a level or something like that, or
yeah. So even though it's any percent all stages, and in the old history of DKC speedrunning, for years they didn't allow this because it was they felt like you had to play through each of the levels.
Yeah.
And they eventually decided the actual definition of any percent all stages, which is this most competitive category, is that as long as you go through the exit of every single level, then you have completed the goal of any percent all stages. So instead of playing, it's a level called Orangutan Gang in World 3. After you beat the level beforehand, you'll go back over to Funky, you'll use his ship, which is just a plane with a barrel in the middle. You'll go back to
Very
World
safe.
1. If you look at the world, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would ride that anywhere, but if you go to World 1, what's unique about the world map of World 1 compared to all the other worlds, where when you go from a level to a level, it's kind of just a straight line, there are actually these corners in World 1, 4 of them specifically, that if you hit any of your face buttons, so on the Super Nintendo, that's A, B, Y, or X, in a 1-frame window on those corners, then you will wrong warp to other parts of other levels. And there's one in particular that we try to hit that's right at the end, basically, of Orangutan Gang. So you just go back and forth between 2 levels, and then you just have to mash that out. You know, there's a lot of different techniques people use for it. Some people will use objects, not just fingers. They'll use a spoon. I've heard the back of a Wiimote. I've heard a hairbrush.
Some people use children.
Like actual. All right, Billy, get over here.
Yeah.
This one's you.
That's what I heard, at least.
I believe it. So yeah, it's use whatever you have to use, and you just get a million shots at it to hit that frame. And if you do it right, it will just, the screen will fade to black, and it'll come back, and you'll be in another level. And in that case, at the end of that level, which even with all the time it takes you to go back, use Funky, fly back to World 1, fly down to the spot you need. I think if you hit it optimally, like the first try possible, I think you're saving like 18 seconds or something over a regular run of that level, which again, like a 30-something minute category is a huge amount of time.
Sure.
And another one that, even though this one sounds frame perfect, oh, I don't want to do it, same league as super jumps. I like day one when you learn this game, learn this trick because there's nothing to it.
Sure, you get a million attempts at it too. I mean, and then you could fail it for 10 seconds straight and still save time if it saves 18 seconds. I mean, so no brainer
and
there.
Probably more than that because it's just a whole level that you just really don't have to learn all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a lot better because some tricks in speedrunning you say, oh, you kind of want to learn the backups. I want to learn the levels anyways. There's no point to it. Like, just learn this. Don't learn the level.
Absolutely. So, and these wrong warps are the reason that there's an any percent category and an old summon category, or
yes. So that is a very simple frame perfect trick that I just told you guys. They get way more complicated in this game. There's a lot of patches in different versions of this game from 1.0 to 1.1 to 1.2. 1.2, a lot of tricks don't work, which is what you're going to
it's like Link to the Past. Yeah.
Yes. Which is what you're going to commonly find on Virtual Console, or just what Virtual Console is 1.2. So if you are going to get this game, I recommend finding a cart. As long as it's US 1.0 or 1.1 or Japanese 1.0, then you're good to go. And exclusive to, I believe it's US 1.0, are these tricks that allow you to wrong warp and skip many, many levels. So any percent, there is a series of tricks that all just magically work together where you want to get your Kong to take a death over a pit where they'll fall in the pit. I don't run this category, so I'm kind of speaking a little loosely of it.
Yeah.
But they fall down into the pit, and they stay in this kind of frozen animation. You do a series of tricks with barrels and whatnot. You get all these IDs correct. You line up everything on the right pixel. And if you do it right, you warp from, I'll just do them in level numbers just to give you an idea. So World 1, Level 1, you can warp from that level. You can warp actually just after that level to 3-5.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that level, if you do a series of tricks and everything, if you do that correctly, then you can warp from 3-5 to World 6, Level 2.
Okay.
So you just in 3 levels got like 4 levels from the end of the game.
Sure.
And that is the any percent run. It's kind of the it isn't the category that people run very commonly, but you can see there are people that have very competitive times. It's just obviously it's a lot faster to hit the skill ceiling for it.
Absolutely.
But it's one where you're really going all out. There's no part of you that's ever playing it safe, like the longer category, like all stages. It's just I gotta go for every single, and there's still frame perfect tricks.
Yeah.
In addition to just setting up the wrong warps and everything, you still have one super jump roll and one jump roll, both at the end of that run.
Yeah.
So you still have to fit those things in.
That's crazy.
Now you got Old Summon, which is the other category I don't know a lot about the history of, but effectively you can wrong warp from 1-1, same sort of thing, to 4-5. Which for a lot of people, 4-5 is kind of the start of the second half of the run, and also where the run just gets a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the great, fun platforming stages are here. Also, the tougher frame perfect tricks and everything you have to do are in this second half of the run. So I don't personally run it, but I've always imagined the reason why people probably run Old Summon is just to basically skip over that first half of the run.
Sure.
And just get to the stuff that's like really hard.
What is the restriction of Old Summon versus anything else? Like what does the category even mean?
That's a good question. Like I think Old Summon, it like kind of just the wording of it itself. Again, I'm sorry if I'm sure DKC community's listening to me. They're like, you're getting it all wrong. But I think Old Summon is some sort of a play on just like kind of the old school category.
Yeah, like a legacy percent of like, hey, we had a lot of people do this and we don't want to completely destroy this leaderboard, but there's a new way of doing it.
I equate it almost a little bit to say like 16 star, if you guys are familiar with Super Mario 64, where it was kind of the old school way to skip over a lot big chunks of the game and make it like a manageable amount of time. But nowadays you can beat Super Mario 64 with 0 stars.
Yeah.
Of these tricks and such. So people still liked what Old Summon gave them because it still felt like something they could take a little bit more seriously. Not to say 80%'s not taken seriously.
Sure, but it's twice as long, so there's more content. And
there's just a lot more tough levels that you have to deal with. So yeah, it's like you say, legacy category. I think more than anything else.
Cool. So just for in terms of time, because we've been going a little long, you've got a couple levels that you recommend here. We already kind of talked about Rope Bridge Rumble.
Yes.
That's a really cool level. That's the first one off the top of your head, like first one off your lips that you say you recommend you go play. Some of these other ones, like what stands out for Oil Drum Alley, for example? Is there some in like one or two sentences?
Yeah, Oil Drum Alley is just the epitome of Donkey Kong Country 1 speedrunning. It's just perfect. I guess placement of where you're going to roll off of platforms, where enemies are placed, when you're going to be using those extended rolls, like I was saying. There is a super jump in that level that you can go for that would save a lot of time. Mm-hmm. I recommend watching the version that doesn't have you fly over the level. There are these flames that shoot up out of different tanks that commonly killed people. You can roll off the edges of those. Just kind of the way everything in that level links together. It's an absolutely gorgeous level to watch a run of. Blackout Basement's another one I highly recommend. The lights turn out in that level every 62 frames, so effectively every second. So to just watch a runner have the level memorized and know exactly when, because you can't see anything but your calls.
Yeah, it's very dark.
Being able to know when to roll through enemies, when to roll off of platforms, when to extend off of platforms, just get over some pits. The lights will come up and you're watching as the viewer, and all of a sudden they've got enemies that are right in their face and they have to like just have it all super well planned out. Those are really exhilarating platforming stages to watch. And the last one I'll go ahead and throw out there, if you want to see the big one, this is the level that decides most people's runs these days, as Platform Perils, is World 6, the level 1, the first level of the last world, where you have to get this frame-perfect jump roll. It's the one that costs or saves the most time. If you hit it, there's 2 versions of it. There's Creme Tut. Tut standing for... oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking Tanked Up Trouble is the name of the level, not Platform Perils.
Okay.
My bad.
No
but
problem.
Tanked Up Trouble is World 6, level 1. There's a version of it called Creme Tut, because Tut is Tanked Up Trouble, where you roll off of a Kremling, and there's Bird Tut, where you roll off of a bird.
Hey, at least you have a different name for your
yeah,
tricks. Good job, guys.
They were forced into it.
Yeah.
They had to.
Yeah.
But one saves you 55 seconds, and the other one saves you 42 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's frame perfect, but it is glorious to watch them just fly through the level then at that point. Normally a very slow auto-scroller, and it basically decides runs these days. And there's a lot more that goes into it after you hit the frame even, with how you survive. If you run into a bee, you die. You're not invulnerable against them. It's definitely it's the clincher of this run. If you're watching and seeing like, oh, I really need him to hit this, and when they hit it, it's jubilation. It's like you just hit the lottery.
And if you miss the first one, can you still go for the second?
You can still go for the second
Okay,
one,
so you get 2 tries. That's cool. Just some other quick things. The boss fights are mostly scripted, so that's kind of just not something we dive into. Normally in games we dive into that, but there's just nothing of note compared to some of this interesting tech. There's also the movement with the animals, specifically the water levels using on guard. He has like a thrusting motion you can do, so getting used to timing that, and you're also obviously moving in all directions, so you're not just moving left and right. Because you're swimming, quote unquote. So those levels are important, especially if you get hit and you lose on guard. He kind of swims away, and so you have to go find him or hunt him down, and you are much slower swimming than you are on him. So that's super important. But I guess just as a last thought, this is a really interesting speed game. It's got a combination of a lot of things. Precise platforming, great music, really cool flashy tricks, just kind of the whole package in terms of something fun to watch. It's a 32-minute run, so it's for, obviously the best times, but it's under 40 minutes, so it's a nice little, consumable speed run, and I highly recommend watching it. I enjoy watching it. Do you have any last thoughts on it?
It's one of the best paced speed runs out there. There's like no downtime in it. You're never gonna find yourself, okay, this is a bathroom break right here. Even the bosses, like they're not interesting, but they're dead in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So they don't like kill the pacing of the run.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely recommend. Whether you just want to watch it, it's super fun, super short, 35 minutes. But if you want to get into it, again, I recommend it as one of the best beginner speedruns out there. I think the world record's 32 minutes. I think anybody in the world is capable of beating this game in under 40 minutes.
Nice.
And learning it in less than a month.
Yeah. So go check that out. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to hit up some of your Q&A, but definitely go check out Donkey Kong Country Speedrun and when you're done listening. Yeah, sorry, we're just running like probably 20 minutes longer than normal. But...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine.
I should have asked you. So what is a normal
That's why I was going like this,
like
or
an hour
like...
and a half?
Yeah, but that's fine. We go longer for special episodes, and it's a big game. There's a lot of stuff. So.
Oh, I don't see your face. Is it supposed to be?
I can't see. Oh, it's because I'm doing OBS to save us. Oh, I guess I didn't even think about that. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, because I know like when we do the final split, like I can't see it.
That's funny. Yeah, no, it's fine. We'll do some of these Q&As. Oh shit, I haven't been. I'm not supposed to cuss. I haven't been writing down the times either, because that's usually what Auth does. But we'll figure it out. What time?
Also,
are we at now?
I do not feel bad if you have to like cut little segments or anything.
No, it'll be fine. I think it's actually been really good. So if it was like awkward or annoying, then I would do that. But if the producer wants to cut something, we'll do it. But
yeah.
But it's been really good.
How long are the shows supposed to be? 90 minutes?
Yeah. Probably around there, but it's fine. We've gone longer before. They get longer as we go on, and there's a lot of good tech stuff to talk about. So,
Cool.
Okay, I'll kick us into these Q&As, and then we'll just try and do them kind of quickly, and then we'll plug you and then plug everybody and stuff. So let me... Okay. Oh, that's not the right thing. Okay, 142. I was supposed to be marking down these times. Sorry, Brian. Okay. So this week we've got a couple of your Q&A questions. We're really excited to go through several of them targeted specifically when people heard that Spike was going to be on the podcast for the first time. People got excited. People got jubilant. So this question's definitely in your direction here. Dorkmaster Fleck, good buddy of mine, had a lot of fun with him at SGDQ, says the Tropical Freeze Relay race at SGDQ 2016 was one of the highlights. Can you talk about the crossover between the original DKC games and the newer DKC Return series in terms of speedrunning? Is there an overlap in the communities? Do you find that they're similar in terms of speed strats, etc.?
I feel like the modern Donkey Kong Country games do, I think, what a modern retelling wants to do. I don't think it's not exactly like the Donkey Kong Country games, but it does have the spirit of them. In terms of a speed run, I think they're very different. I mean, you want to be rolling as much as possible. But I think games, especially Tropical Freeze, kind of pulls on its own tech, considering you've got two Kongs that work together, with one constantly on Donkey Kong's back. So you effectively almost get power-ups of sorts. So almost more like a Mario game in that way, rather than each Kong is distinct, like they have these abilities. This is what they can do. You do get a little bit of overlap in the communities. I would personally like to see a lot more. I've been trying to convince more and more classic DKC runners to get into trying out, especially Tropical Freeze, because I think they'd like it.
Yeah, it's a really cool run. It's really fun to watch. So if you can go back and watch the SGDQ relay that you guys were trading off each level or world or something like that.
Each world, yeah.
Each world, yeah. So it was a lot of fun to watch. And that game, I haven't actually ever played it, but you actually can play as Cranky Kong, and there's a lot of cool stuff in that game.
And Cranky's the man in that game.
Yeah.
Casual play is hard to use, but in a speedrun, he's the guy.
It's like DuckTales, right? Pogo sticking with the cane.
You pogo everywhere, yep.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. We've got another one from Plasmodium Vivix. That's a tough one to say. I've recently discovered a really great DKC ROM hack called Donkey Kong Country The Lost Levels, made by Lucas Wrangle. Have you ever played it? Is there any interest towards the game or any DKC hacks in general?
That is the number one. So I've never played a ROM hack of any sort. That is the number one ROM hack that I want to play. Because I've always asked, because I love Donkey Kong Country 2, which is what it's based off of.
Yeah.
And people said it is far and away the best DKC ROM hack ever made. Whenever I get a free second, if I can pull myself away from like some Crash games and all these speedrun projects, I absolutely want to play that.
Yeah, I didn't even... Yeah. I mean, I should have figured there'd be DKC ROM hacks, but I actually wasn't aware of them, so that's really cool.
I imagine they're probably at least a little bit harder to make than, you get SMW hacks all the time.
Yeah.
But maybe
because it's
DKC...
also more tile based too. Like something like SMW is very tile based, so it's hence Mario Maker. It's a lot easier to just kind of place these things. Like DKC's kind of got a weird art style, so it would probably be quite a challenge. Yeah, that's really interesting. I've played Donkey Kong 4 on the NES.
Yeah,
we talked about that in an episode. We talked about Chinese DMix.
I imagine you have.
Yeah, we did a Chinese DMix episode about Chinese Link to the Past, Donkey Kong 4, and Chinese Super Mario World. So if you didn't hear that, go back and check that out. Chad made me play all three. Yeah, Chad made me play all three, so we had to talk about which ones were better. So Squally Pillow asks, Spike has nobody has questions for me or Chad. It's all for you. They were excited. So it's okay we're going extra.
Flattered.
It's okay we're going long because people just want more Spike. Spike has been playing a lot of Crash Bandicoot NST lately. Has he always wanted to run Crash and using this as an opportunity, or do you find something interesting about NST that made him want to start running it?
It has been, man, John, you know this. I'm sure Chad's the same way. You have bucket lists of speed games that you want to go through. And I always told myself I loved Crash Bandicoot as a kid.
Yeah.
I played Crash 1 and 2, rented them both quite a few times. Hard as nails games, but I always wanted to try out speedrunning them. And I didn't think about it until I started playing NST. And then I don't know, man. You just, all of a sudden, you get that inspiration. You're playing it and it's so much fun. You say, you know what, naturally, because I always thought the reason why you see so many people speedrun platformers is because they're hard as nails when they start off, and then eventually just when you like speedrunning is just getting good at the games.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, so you realize like I'm already kind of there. They have built-in speedrun challenges within the game where you have to beat each level in a certain amount of time. Once you're done collecting all those, if you're 100% in the game, you already kind of know how to speedrun the game at that point.
Definitely.
Because they're not easy challenges. They're not like, oh yeah, beat him in like 2 minutes. It's like, no, dude, you gotta, especially from a casual standpoint, you feel like I have to be frame perfect for the entire level to get this trophy, even if there are a lot of exploits afterwards. So no, it's I don't know if like necessarily NST like I don't know, like I thought NST just like because it's the flavor of the month, it's what I had right in front of me. I played it. I actually have all of them now on the original, so you never know. But yeah, super fun speed games.
You also said frame perfect in a situation where it wasn't frame perfect, so that was kind of amazing to wrap that all together. That's kind of interesting. That's similar to Azure Striker Gunvolt 2, which you did commentary for me on. If you're playing that game casually, in order to unlock items and get different stuff, you have different challenges you're supposed to meet, and some of them are speed-based challenges. Beat this level in under 50 seconds or whatever, so it gets you kind of in that mind. A lot of modern games especially are starting to do that, which is really cool. There's maybe not in reference to the speedrun community, but just kind of adding this whole aspect of like this meta game of beating a game fast, which is the speed, you know, the whole point of speedrunning. So we'll do one more. Euphalizer asked, and me and Chad answered this, so I'm just going to ask this to you. Do you have any interesting or funny behind-the-scenes stories related to GDQs or SGDQ that we just got out of? That'd be cool to hear. Anything funny that you are able to share?
What is something that I am able to share?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like necessarily a one story that I would point out. All I would do is say anybody, because people say all the time, they're like, GDQs just look boring. I don't know. I don't know if I ever want to go to. Please go to a GDQ. They're so much fun. It's I think still the best collection of retro gamers in the world.
Definitely.
Bringing people together. So you're always gonna do fun stuff. We're gonna go. You know, you're gonna go to different parties and such, hang out with different groups of people, you know, go mini golfing and bowling with them and everything.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I had more time to think about it, I could come up with like some sort of a goofy story.
Sure.
But I would just say in general, you go for the entire week, you're going to have a hoot.
Yeah,
like,
that's kind of, we talked about that a lot in our recap. Basically, like the people who are super anti GDQ or think it's no fun are the people who have never been, because it is a lot of fun, and it's really, I mean, I'm sure there's people who've gone and have had poor experiences, but for the most part, everybody I know who have gone enjoy meeting new people and just having a good time. And I've always had a blast. I mean, it's one reason, unfortunately, you see the stream room being empty is because everybody's out doing fun things. Like they might not be there to watch in person, or they're drinking in the hotel room with a bunch of people watching on the TV. So yeah, we definitely recommend that. So Spike, where can people find you if they want to watch you playing some Crash and what is it, NST, NRT, NST?
Yeah, it's short for the Insane Trilogy.
Oh, Insane, which is spelled with an N. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, that seems important. So where can they find you?
Wacky, zany energy, Crash Bandicoot. No. You can just follow me at twitch.tv/notauthorBlues, I believe right below me, but Spikevegeta. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I keep all the same stuff. Spikevegeta for all those. I have a YouTube channel that I never upload stuff to. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try. My bad.
And that's Spike, Spike, Vegeta, Vegeta. And you're a full-time streamer, so he needs your follows. He needs your support. Just throw your bits at him. Keep him eating. Keep him, you know, in that fine figure that he's in now.
Rent if you don't.
Yeah,
it's kind of a weird thing. So.
Yeah, so go check him out. He's great. He does Kingdom Hearts stuff. You do what are some other stuff that you run?
Rayman series, Mario series. I'm a jack of all trades.
Yeah, you do a lot of Galaxy stuff.
Donkey Kong Country. Yeah.
Yeah, I like watching you play Galaxy, especially.
Nice.
Yeah, Galaxy's a fun game. So for me, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram at John Carls. You can find me on YouTube at John Carls1. Maybe Spike will follow me after this. I'm just gonna poke him again. Yeah. And then you can find us at theframesavers.com. That has links to everything you need for us. That's got links to our Twitter, to our YouTube, to our different places you can listen to the podcast, like Google Play, iTunes, everything like that. We're currently trying to hit $150 a month. So the $100 a month goal was, oh man, my Twitch alert just went out. Spikevegeta just followed me. So we hit $100 a month. That's why we've been doing the pockets for the last like 6 months or so. $150 a month, which I think is only $14 a month away for us now. We're going to do a Super Metroid episode, which again, me and Chad have never played casually, let alone speedrun. So we will both have to actually play it casually, and we'll get somebody good on to actually talk about it. Outside of that, big shout outs to Brian Morgenthal. He's our producer. He makes this thing happen. You can follow him at bmorgstv on Twitch and Twitter. He's been streaming horror games a lot lately with his wife, to like 0 to 1 viewers, and generally the 1 viewer is me. So go follow him, give him some support, watch him play some Resident Evil 6 or something, and tell him some other games to play that you might rather him play. Let's make him become a real Twitch streamer. It'd be awesome. So go follow him. He's a great guy. And any last thoughts, Mr. Spikevegeta? Thank you so much for coming on. You did a great job.
Thank you.
It was great.
Yeah.
Top notch.
I look forward to the episode. I'll catch more episodes in the future for sure.
Yeah, so go follow Spike. Chad will be back in 2 weeks, don't you worry. Or actually back the week after this with his pocket, so he has not abandoned you. And until then, we will. I guess you will hear us later. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let me stop this. Okay.